that you have the opportunity to build such a temple. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a part where Srila Prabhupada says in a purport, a very nice point which I think we should all think about, especially when we want to give Lakshmi to the service of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada writes there, the source of income is not the source of maintenance. It's a very straightforward line. He says the source of income is not the source of maintenance. Prabhupada then goes on to say, income we may earn, but he maintains us. So we may earn so much Lakshmi, but sometimes we think that by earning Lakshmi, we will protect ourselves. And sometimes we think by earning Lakshmi, that Lakshmi will protect us. But Prabhupada makes it clear that actually we are not being maintained by the money that we have. Because if the money were to maintain us, we'll be free of all illnesses, we'll be able to be in control of our lives, we will be sending all our children to the best universities, we will have the best jobs, the best cars, the best houses. But only you and I know in our own houses, in our own situations, how much we struggle with our own lives. Everyone knows your own challenges. So this is a very important statement by Srila Prabhupada, because sometimes we think that when we earn something, it belongs to us. But Prabhupada makes it very clear that everything is coming from Krishna. So whatever that we get, if we use it for Krishna, it is the most natural thing to happen actually. It is only when we keep something and we think it belongs to us, that is the most unnatural thing in the world to happen. So that is a very beautiful statement from Krishna. So the next time, we feel discouraged, that my life is not going the way it should, I should earn more, please remember, the source of income is not the source of your maintenance. Krishna always maintains us. In that way, we become free. We are at ease when we have to give Lakshmi. We don't think, if I give it now, I will not have enough. Krishna will ensure that we have just enough to maintain ourselves. That is all we need. And everything else that comes is really up to him. So I can see that happening in this community, because to have built such a wonderful temple, you all have lived that way actually. And that is a very sastric point. It's given by Srila Prabhupada. So thank you for that. Jaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunati Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhav Ji ki, Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We don't have much time, but there's a nice verse from Bhagavad Gita which is very instructive. It is from the third chapter, 31st verse. And when I'm looking at 31st verse, I'd like to also read 32nd and a little bit of 33rd. They go hand in hand. So let's chant. Om Namo. Oh, I've done that. Okay. Let me chant 331. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manava Shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante bikarmabihi. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha Shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchanti te karmabihi. Ye me matam idam nityam Anutishtanti manavaha Shraddhavanto anasuyanto Muchanti tepi karmabihi. I'll just read the translation. Please repeat. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. I'll just read it again. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Please hear the purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. I'm going to read the last line again. It's a very powerful line. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. This verse is such an important verse in Bhagavad Gita for two reasons. The first is, Krishna makes it very clear in this verse that if we follow his instructions, then we become free of the bondage of fruitive activities in this world. In other words, we become free of this material nature. So it's very important here for us to understand that Krishna wants us to follow his instructions. And how we follow the instructions of Krishna, he has also given. There are two things that are very important here. If we want to follow the instructions of Krishna, Krishna says, you must follow my instructions, but we have to execute our duties. This is an important point. We may ask, what is our duty? Very often in Sanskrit, our duties are considered to be our dharmas. And we all have different dharmas. So if your dharma is to be a mother, then execute it well. If your dharma is to be a father, execute it well. If your dharma is to perform a service in the temple, execute it well. So we all have different hats. We are brothers, mothers, fathers, sisters, in-laws. We are working. They are all dharmas. So executing these dharmas are very important. Never in Krishna consciousness has there been a statement where Krishna or Srila Prabhupada has told us to neglect our dharma. This is an important point. Sometimes people think or have a perception that Krishna consciousness is very fanatical and it tells us to leave everything. But you will realize from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that nobody left anything in a capricious manner. Krishna has never told us to leave anything in a whimsical manner. Everything that we do, we have to execute it, and we must do it to the best of our ability. Our capacities may be different, but our abilities is what Krishna is looking for. Our capacity to perform something may be different, but the ability to perform it, that is something we can determine. A good example, for example, is Hanumanji in Ramayana. You all know during the pastime of Ramayana, there was a point when Lakshman was hit by the strong, powerful weapon of Indrajit, and he fell unconscious. And when everyone looked at him and asked what should be done, the Vaidya actually suggested that the Sanjivani plant, which grows on a hill very far away, that is the actual remedy that we need. Nobody could actually go to there and come back in time because it was time sensitive. They had to bring it back to Lakshman to administer it within a particular time. Otherwise, calamity would befall. The only one capable of doing that was Hanumanji, because he could leap very far and he could go very far. The only problem was Hanumanji was not a pharmacist by occupation. He couldn't actually identify the plant. And even though the Vaidya explained to him exactly how the color is and what it looks like, right, it was still not possible for him. But anyway, he did not have maybe the capacity as a pharmacist to understand the plant, but he had ability to perform a duty. What did he do? He just crossed over mountains and seas, and he reached that mountain. And he tried his best to look around and find the plant, but he couldn't. He was not trained for it, you know. If you're trained for it, you can. And the plant had a particular color. I'm colorblind myself, so I would never have been able to find it, especially if you give me a color. And Hanumanji could not find it because that's not his strength. But he did something. He thought, if I can't bring, the medicine from the pharmacy, so to speak, to Lakshman, maybe what I can do is I can bring the whole pharmacy there, right? So he picked up the whole mountain and he brought it all the way there. And then the expert Vaidya, he could locate it on the mountain and he gave it to Lakshman, and Lakshman woke up from the swoon that was given by Indrajit. This is the example of the verse, that we execute our duty. Hanumanji had a duty to perform. He did not have the capacity to understand exactly, what to find, but Prabhupada writes in one lecture, he speaks in a lecture, that he had the ability to carry a whole mountain. That was his strength, and he used his strength for Krishna. So when we talk about executing our duties, we may not be perfect, but Krishna is not looking for perfection. Krishna is looking for purity. This is very important. There is a difference between the concept of perfection and purity. Purity means purity of thought and mind, that there is no motivation in our hearts except to please Krishna. You remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met this South Indian illiterate Brahmana. He did not have the ability to read the Gita, but he was holding the Gita and he was crying. And everyone was actually looking at him with amusement because they told Mahaprabhu that this man is crying, but he's not reading the Gita. And Mahaprabhu was intrigued. And he asked the man, "Dear sir, everyone tells me that you are reading the Gita, but everyone also tells me that you are illiterate. So how are you reading the Gita?" And he said that my spiritual master ordered me to read the Gita. It was his instruction. In Bhagavad Gita, the word instruction is given here as matam. Matam means injunction. Injunction, right, is a very deep form of instruction. In law, when you say something is an injunction, it means it's mandatory. You have to do it. And that's the point here, that we have a duty. Don't neglect it. We have to do it. But the important thing is how we discharge it. The important thing is how we discharge it. So the blind, illiterate Brahmana said, I don't have capacity to read, but I have faith in my spiritual master's instruction. And though I'm carrying out that instruction in an imperfect way, I still tear and I'm still feeling this ecstatic joy, because when I remember how kind and merciful Krishna is, that he is becoming a mere charioteer, and he's being guided and steered in the battlefield by Arjuna, right? And he's malleable to the will of Arjuna. Such greatness and mercy of Krishna, it makes me feel this great feeling of ecstasy. And Mahaprabhu declared him to be the greatest of devotees there, even though he was not able to discharge an order in a materially perfect manner. So you see, there's a difference between purity and perfection. We may do a particular service in a materially perfect manner, but has our heart been in that service? if our heart is in that service in such a way that we're doing it as instruments of the Lord. I really love that prayer that you have, Prabhu, for the temple that you just chanted just now. An instrument in the service of the Lord. Nimitta matra bhavya savya sachi. Right? That is the point. In 11:33 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says so nicely to Arjuna, Mayai vaite nihata purva eva. Nimitta matra bhavya savya sachi. Savyasachi means one who's expert in shooting arrows. And yet, Krishna tells Arjuna that you may be the most expert person in shooting arrows, but I want you to know something today. Maya vaite, by my arrangement, by my energy, by my own providential arrangement, Maya vaite nihata purva eva. All who are supposed to have been killed by your arrows have actually been killed by me. So Krishna was just gently reminding Arjuna, you may be shooting the arrows, but I decide who dies, right? You can shoot, but I decide who lives and who does not. So then what is the purpose of being so great a warrior as Savyasachi? So the purpose is nimitta mata, become an instrument in the hands of the Lord. And that is the meaning of matam. When we follow the instructions of the Lord, we must become his instrument. That is the meaning of following someone's instructions. When you follow the instructions of your spiritual master, and you follow the instructions of the great devotees, you follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and their lordships, it means that we become instruments in their hands. Then we can actually execute the instructions very well. And very well doesn't mean the material version of very well. Just like Hanumanji could not locate the plant, but he brought the mountain. Just like the illiterate Brahmana could not read, but he had the right bhav, he had the right rasa to actually absorb the instruction of his spiritual master. That is more important. That is more important. Ekalavya is the opposite of that. We all know Ekalavya from Mahabharata, isn't it? Ekalavya wanted Dronacharya to be his spiritual master. He wanted to be the best archer in the world. But Dronacharya was driven by the understanding that Arjuna will ultimately be the instrument of the Lord. So Dronacharya did not want this Nishada prince, Ekalavya, to become a pupil. So he told him, do you accept me as my spiritual master? And he said, yes, I do. Then my first instruction to you is, don't become an archer. That is my first instruction to you. That's my matam to you. But Ekalavya did not accept it. And he went away and he did a statue of Drona and he started practicing every day. And the day came, when his prowess was exposed. And Drona came and saw him. And Ekalavya said, see, I have followed your instructions so well and I've accepted you as my master that I've built a statue of you and I've practiced in front of you. But he forgot that the first instruction that Drona gave him was, you're not supposed to be an archer. So why did you become an archer? So sometimes we may be very expert at something, but it is not something that pleases Krishna. Ravana was very expert in so many things, but I don't think he was very pleasurable to Ram. Kamsa was very expert in many things, but I don't think he pleased the residents of Mathura and Vrindavan and Krishna. So being materially expert, but not using it in the service of Krishna, means that actually we do not follow his instructions. This is very important. And if we do follow the instructions of Krishna, then Krishna tells us in this verse two things. We must follow it based on two very important qualities. One is Shraddhavanto and the other is Anasuyanto. Anasuyanto means without envy. If we are envious of Krishna, then how can we follow his instructions? We may externally be able to follow his instructions like we are, but internally, we are not actually following him. If we are envious of someone, we will not hear them because we're envious of them, right? We may pretend, yes, I'm hearing you, but inside we're very envious of them. So that is not following the instructions. So if we want to follow the instructions of the Lord, envy must not be in our heart. Not just envy towards Krishna, but envy towards his devotees and living entities. It's very difficult actually to get rid of envy because, no matter how much humble we want to be, we all sometimes believe that we're good at something. So if someone sings, supposing I sing Kirtan and I think I'm very good at Kirtan, and someone sings Kirtan and I think, he's also very good. Then what happens is immediately I compete with him. or her, and I feel envious in my heart. But sometimes we couch it by saying, "Oh, Prabhu, you sang, your kirtan was very nice." But in my heart, I'm thinking, "But I sing better than you." So that envy, doesn't allow us to actually follow the instructions and serve Vaishnavas and Krishna. It is an impediment to us, actually. That is why Prabhupada created this beautiful avenue of coming together as a program. Do you know in the 4th canto, 30th chapter, I can't remember the exact verse. I think maybe it's 4:30:24, but it's a very beautiful verse. It's a prayer chanted by the Prachetas to Krishna. And over there, they say very nicely, Yatra idyante katham ristas, Krishnayaha prasammo yataha, nirvaira sarva bhuteshu, nod vega yatra kaschana. And you can test it. Test this verse. Test it. What the verse tells us is, Yatra idyante katham ristas. Whenever there is an assembly of persons gathered to hear about the katha of Krishna, yatra idyante katham ristas, 3 things will not affect that audience. 3 things. Now you test it. The first thing that will not affect the audience is Trishnayaha prasammo yataha. Trishnaya means material hankerings. When we come together to hear about Krishna, whatever material hankerings we may have, they are all outside the temple. They don't come inside. Otherwise, in daily life, material hankerings are always a challenge for us. We see something, we think I should be satisfied with it, but then our neighbor gets something more, and we think maybe I should get something more. In the name of upgrading, we keep upgrading, but we are not satisfied. When I was young, I remember I asked my mother, I'll just buy this one toy, and that's it. I'm very satisfied, nothing else. Next month, something else comes. Then I'll tell her, this is the last of the last of the last. And then the next month comes, and then this is the last of the last of the last of the last. Our hankering when we were young was for all these things. When we grow older, we think we have given it up, but it's just become more sophisticated. We've learned how to hide it. And we've learned how to say it in a nice way so that people feel, oh, no, we're just progressing. But we're hankering, you see. So this hankering, if you chant Krishna's names, if you hear about Krishna, if you take darshan, you'll find automatically in your heart, even now, whatever hankering you may have, it's either checked or it's diminished. The second thing that doesn't touch us when we come together in these kinds of programs is nirvaira sarva bhuteshu. Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu means we become free of envy. Remember, this verse is speaking about envy as a challenge, as an impediment to following Krishna's instruction. So when you hear and come down to hear about Krishna, Krishna removes envy from our hearts. If this was a wedding function, I guarantee you we will not be sitting down here like that. At this moment, none of you are looking at each other. I can safely say that. You're either looking at me or you're looking at the deities. But you're not looking at each other. But if this was a social function, everyone would be looking at each other. What sari you're wearing, how much jewelry you have, how little jewelry you have, what are you wearing, or you said hi to me, you forgot to say hi to him. All these things happen. In fact, if we are not careful, even in the gathering of devotees, we may bring this kind of poison. Someone says Hare Krishna to us, we're very happy. But for some reason, they may not say Hare Krishna to the person next to you because they are a little bit distracted. Don't take offense. Oh, you said Hare Krishna to my friend, you didn't say Hare Krishna to me. I've had cases where devotees don't talk to each other because they forgot, or someone said Hare Krishna and someone didn't say, and they became upset. These things are very possible if we are on the platform of envy. But because yatra idyante katham ristas, therefore nirvaira sarva bhuteshu, we are free of envy. No one is envious. No one is envious. And the third thing that happens when we come together, see how practical Bhagavatam is. It gives you things that you can test immediately. It is not in the air, it is in the ground. The third thing is nod vega yatra kaschana. Nod vega. Udvega means fear. Udvega means great fear. Na udvega means no fear. Yatra kaschana. The third thing about coming together to hear about Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Krishna is that we become free of fear and the cousin of fear, which is anxiety. There is no anxiety in our hearts. If we all are in difficulty, we come before Krishna, somehow that anxiety is soothed. somehow we have faith that Krishna will take care of it. Otherwise, it's very difficult for these anxieties to go. That is why we request devotees, if we want to follow Krishna, if we want to follow his instructions, 331 is very clear. Be free of envy and have faith in Krishna. Shraddhavanto, anasuyanto. These are the two pillars on which we follow the instructions of the Vaishnavas, of Krishna, of our spiritual masters. If these two qualities are lacking, then it is very difficult to follow instructions. You'll follow it for a while, but you cannot follow it all the time because it's not coming from the heart. It's like someone compelling you to do it. I have to do it. I have to do it. There's a difference between I have to do it and I want to do it. If you want to do it, then follow what Krishna says. Such a simple formula, right? Ye me matam idam nityam. Matam means injunction. Those who want to follow the injunctions of Krishna, nityam, always, then do one thing, right? Shraddhavanto anasuyanto. Have faith in Krishna. When you have faith in Krishna, everything falls in place. I'll give you one simple example from Bhagavatam. You all remember the churning of the milk ocean? There was the Devas and there were the Asuras, right? Now, just before the Devatas wanted to churn the milk ocean, they were advised to do so by Krishna because the Asuras were too powerful at that time, and the Devatas found that they could not fight. So they felt, what can we do? So they went to Brahma. Brahma brought them to Krishna, Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu gave them very nice advice. His first advice to them was that whatever happens, you can only win this battle if you get Amrit. You can only get this Amrit if you churn the milk ocean. But you can't do it yourself. You're not strong enough. You need to declare truce with the Asuras. Now, generally, if you know the Devatas and Asuras, right, the truce is not going to happen. They're always on the opposite ends of each other. But Krishna told them, declare truce. Because he said, your time is not favorable. Therefore, you must declare truce. But one thing you must do is this. As you churn, many things will come out. Don't take anything. Let the Asuras take it. And finally, Amrit will come out. But when Amrit comes out, the Asuras will grab it. Don't take it. You know what a difficult instruction that is? Think about it. We want Amrit, and then now Krishna is telling us you'll get Amrit, but when it comes out, you do one thing. Don't touch it. They will grab it, but you don't touch it. So the Devatas are very perplexed. Why? That means it will go. Have you been in a situation where you wanted something very badly and suddenly the counter opens and everybody is rushing and you think, how am I going to get it if everybody gets it? That's the same feeling the Devatas probably felt. But then Krishna told them one very good advice. He said, in peace and patience, everything is gained. In anger and agitation, nothing is gained. What wonderful advice. 2 P's and 2 A's. In peace and patience, everything is gained. And this peace and patience can only come if you have faith in Krishna. Isn't it true? The more faith you have in Krishna, the more peaceful you are, the less anxious you are. Because you have faith and conviction. Krishna is there. Why should I worry? You become peaceful. And when you are peaceful, you learn to become patient. If you're not patient, you'll end up being a patient. If you're not careful, right? For those who are not patient, your blood pressure goes up, you end up in the hospital, you become patient. So being peaceful and patient is just the opposite of being angry and agitated. The Asuras were driven by anger and agitation. That would be the motivating force for them to churn the milk ocean. The motivating force for the Devatas would be peace and patience. Because they had faith that Krishna would take care of the matter. And so what did they become? They became the prayer that you stated, nimitta matra. They became instruments in the hands of the Lord. And so the churning started, if you recall. And so many things came out. And half of them the Asuras took actually. Right? They just kept taking everything. Lakshmi Devi, they tried, they could not. But other than Lakshmi Devi, almost everything they took. The only thing that came at the end was Dhanvantri with Amrit. And if you read Bhagavatam, both the Devatas and the demons, when they saw the Dhanvantri with Amrit, they just dropped everything. Vasuki just fell into the water, right? Up to then, they were holding him up, but after that, they just dropped him. And the demons ran to Dhanvantri and caught the Amrit. Now the Devatas were going to move, but the Devatas reminded themselves that, listen, do you remember what Krishna told us? Peace and patience, not anger and agitation. Don't jump on it. Now, this is a very good lesson for us, because sometimes when you want to follow the instructions of the Lord, to do it alone is very difficult. But to do it in sadhu sangha becomes much easier. In the association of devotees, faith is created. And in the association of devotees, when faith is created, you are able to follow the instructions of Krishna in a much more effective and pleasing manner. That is the power of why you are gathered here today as a congregation. This is Sastrik, this is Bhagavatam. It shows us that this is an authorized way of growing our faith and following Krishna. This is not something in the air. And when the Devatas reminded themselves of this, they then began to be stronger. And when they held back, they saw the demons started fighting over the Amrit themselves. It's always internal wars, isn't it, between the demons? They will fight. And when Krishna saw that they actually kept to the instructions of what he wanted, ye me madam idam nityam, that they did it, right? Shraddhavanto anasuyanto, without envy. And they did it with full faith in Krishna. Then what did Krishna do? He took the form of Mohini Murti. And in that beautiful form, he just completely mesmerized and bewildered the demons. So much so that the demons decided, my most beautiful lady, because you're beautiful, we are giving you the Amrit. What a reason to give Amrit to anyone. Huh? If you think about it, right, it's completely illogical. Why would I give you something because you look good? But the demons are demons, because they don't follow Krishna. There's no yeme matam idam nityam. So the result is, they are befuddled. The result is all their endeavors are ruined. And that's what I wanted to tell you. 332 of Bhagavad Gita gives you the opposite of 331. Because in 332, Krishna says, but those out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of knowledge, befooled. Isn't this fitting the description of the demons? They were befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. So even though they wanted to become the perfectly strong beings, Mohini Murti befuddled them, got them all to, mesmerize, told them, all of you go and take your baths because you all look really bad. Go and take your bath, do your achaman, everything, sit down and be patient and I'll give it to everyone. And when she came out, she looked so beautiful. And when she started giving it to the Devatas, the demons alarm bells should have sounded. But what did the demons tell each other? It's all right. She's very beautiful. She'll know what she's doing. Same befooled mode of thinking. And the only person, of course, we know was Rahu, who went on the other side. But apart from that, everyone else was on this side. And finally, Krishna is so perfect that he knows exactly how much to distribute. I hope you all do that with your prasadam distribution. You know exactly how much everybody gets just nice, And she did it in such a way that at the end, there was nothing left. And then she revealed who she was. But by then, all the Devatas had gotten Amrit. And in the battle that followed, the demons were no match for the Devatas. Very simple, but it shows us something very important. And I want to end by telling you, at the end of that beautiful episode, there is a shloka. It's in 8:9:28. When you have time, please look at it. 8:9:28. Evam sura suragana samadesha kalaha etartha karma matayopi phale vikalpaha tatramritam suragana phalam anjasapur yatpada pankaja raja shrayanana daityaha. This verse tells us everything we have to in relation to the verse today. In the verse, Shukadev Goswami tells us the place, the time, the cause, the purpose, the activity, the ambition were all the same between the Devatas and the Asuras. Think about it. They were at the same place. They were at the same time. They had the same cause. They had the same purpose. They had the same activity, And actually, they had the same ambition. It was all the same. But Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, the Devatas achieve one result and the demons achieve the other. Why? Because the Devatas always take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and they have faith in him, and they follow his instructions. And the demons never take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and they never follow his instructions. And so, in this very simple episode, the Devatas, even though they ask for something material, like Amrit, but because they are always at the shelter of Krishna, Krishna fulfilled their desire. How much more will Krishna fulfill our desires if we ask for pure devotional service? Why would he not fulfill our desire if we ask for pure devotional service? So the best way to follow Krishna's instructions is have faith in him. And faith is created in sadhu sangha. And never be envious of Krishna. Never be envious of anyone. Whatever we have is just enough to serve Krishna. Krishna will never ever give us anything less, or he will never take away the ability to serve him. Krishna always has given us ability to serve him. It's just how much of a desire we have that is really important. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki. Yadai Gaura Premanande. It's sharp 6. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. That was such a wonderful, compact, condensed class. Really, really nourishing. I have a question about the fourth canto verse that you mentioned.
Yes, Prabhu.
And we see this practically when we come together in person, the effects of hearing Harikatha together versus sitting at home comfortably on a laptop or a TV monitor, right, watching it live.
Yes.
Why is Shastrically, what is the basis for that?
It's a good point. Maybe
you could repeat the question.
Okay, yeah, just for everyone, and correct me if I'm getting it right. You're drawing a comparison. What's the difference between sitting down together in an assembly of devotees and say sitting alone and watching a satsang live or a class live or a kirtan live? Is that what you're saying, Prabhu? Online. I think the biggest difference is that even if you have something online, Prabhu, you are alone. And because you are alone and watching it online, the mind always gives you enough of a favorable argument or the possibility of you being distracted or the freedom for you not to really concentrate is actually greater online than it is in the assembly of devotees. The beauty of being in the assembly of devotees is even if we don't want to behave like devotees, we have to behave like devotees. Let's face it, isn't it? This is the genius of Srila Prabhupada actually. So that I come in, I don't want to put tilak, but I just saw outside Masterji's putting tilak for everyone. So you have to put tilak, And then I'm just in the physical association, sadhu sangha. The beauty of sadhu sangha is that because we are together, we check each other's devotional service. But when you're online, you have the ability to off it, pause it, walk away, take something, come back, but you won't do it here. Because here, as Prabhu so rightly pointed out, phones go off, everyone is silent. It's amazing. I'm seeing children here, and they are silent. So the benefit of being together is really the practical part of it, Prabhu. Sastrically, it's very possible for an advanced devotee to be sitting under a tree and advancing. But Prabhupada tells us this is Kali Yuga, and our mind can give us so many arguments to be restless in devotional service. But when we come together, we help each other grow. Just like even in mundane situations, in a mundane classroom, if you're competitive and you see other students doing well, you probably want to do well. If you see other students behaving in a certain way, either you follow it positively or negatively. But in a sadhu sangha, it's always positive. That's why, Prabhu, even though during COVID, for example, many of us went online and it was helpful, I'm sure you agree, coming together again to see each other and sitting down together to feel that energy of Krishna consciousness is priceless. Does that help, Prabhuji?
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu.
So much. Just have one question. Give a lot of instruction on how we should do. The question is a little bit more personal in the sense you have a very busy, challenging career. Maybe tell us what does your daily schedule look like?
Okay. I think it's a lot like everyone, Prabhu, in the sense that, yeah. No, I mean, I'm working, so you're all also working. So that time is given to work, It's just that being a lawyer I think it's a big challenge to be a lawyer and a devotee because occupationally, we keep fighting. And I'm a litigator, right? Which means, I start the day in the court, I end the day in the court. So which means I'm fighting. So for me, being in Krishna consciousness is so nice, Prabhu, because nobody fights. I know we fight also, but our fighting is nothing compared to what I see there. So when devotees fight, I tell them, don't take it too seriously. It's nothing, come to court with me, then you'll see how bad it is. But I think sadhana is very important. So waking up in the morning early to chant Manglarti, that's very important. That's something I do. Trying to chant as many rounds as I can in the morning before going to the temple is also very important. You should get enough sleep, but I believe that Krishna is Yogeshwar, and sometimes even if you cannot get your requisite amount of sleep on paper, Krishna, he has the capacity to make you feel, well and rested, even if you may not clock the number of hours that you're supposed to sleep. It's not possible for us, in the working world to always sleep early and wake up early. So very often, a lot of my calls come later because I have projects in India. As a general counsel for GBC, a lot of my work is in the US. US is the most litigious country in the world. So you can imagine the kind of things that come out from the US, and we are 12 hours, away from each other. So I don't get so much sleep, but I have worked in such a way where I've got used to the idea of not having so much sleep but being able to function. It's worked well for me. But I don't want to give up Manglarti. And I don't think anyone should give up Manglarti. It doesn't matter if your Manglarti is not 4:30 as in standard in temple. As long as you're in the Brahma Murta hour, please wake up for Manglarti. 5:30, 5 o'clock, that's also fine. If you can wake up earlier, that's even better. If you can chant some rounds before Manglarti, I find that very powerful. If you start your rounds at 3 in the morning and you finish at about 4, you've done 8 very good rounds. And then you get prepared for Manglarti at 4:30. And after Manglarti, you can chant the rest of your rounds, get a little bit of a nap, and then after that, you can leave. I leave for work at about 7:38. So that gives me a short nap in between. And then I'm at work and I do whatever I can. And in the evening, I make sure I spend time with the family. I have a boy and a girl, and my wife is also working, so we both have to come back in the evening. And at that time, it's very important for us to come together and do some kirtan, do Gorarti, maybe do some reading, and just spend quality time with the family. Don't compromise the time with your family. People should not feel that you're in Krishna consciousness and you've neglected your family. That is not the way we should be. Being in Krishna consciousness, we can be loving with all our family members. It doesn't mean, that we have renounced everyone. Be with them, inspire them in Krishna consciousness, and make sure that they are part of the community. So these are some of the things that I do, Prabhu. And of course, there must be time to study Bhagavatam. And studying Bhagavatam, I've learned that the best way to study Bhagavatam is to steal time. Time is there, but you have to steal it. If you don't steal time, time steals you. So you just need a few minutes to learn a shloka. You need 15 minutes to read one shloka in a purport. And then you have a notebook. Like I have a notebook, right? So every morning you read one shloka, and then you write the shloka in your notebook. You write 2-3 very good points that you have taken from Prabhupada's purport. And then for the rest of the day, you meditate on those points. You remember the shloka. And by the end of the day, the shloka is very much embedded in your head. You don't have to rush. We're not on a time scale to finish something. Sometimes we want to finish something, but by trying to finish it, we're not absorbing it. Quality is always better than quantity. Prabhupada said, better to have one moon than many stars. So whatever we study, I found that if you put your heart into it, then it never leaves you. It stays with you. And in that way, we can find so many pockets of time. One thing my Guru Maharaj used to do, and I found that very helpful, was he would chant all the shlokas that he had learned while he was shaving and while he was bathing. And very often we would stand outside just hearing all the shlokas, but he was so fast, that he would go through the different chapters of Bhagavad Gita very quickly. But I've learned that over the years, you will find some shlokas in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that appeal to you. Take those shlokas, write them down, study them. Chanting of shlokas, remembering the word-to-word transliteration, and then the translation can really make a difference in studying Srila Prabhupada and his books. It can make a big difference, big difference. Give you a very simple example, we'll end. In 284 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a verse, Shranavata Shraddhaya Nityam, right? Shranavata Shraddhaya Nityam. Shranavataha means to hear. Shraddhaya means faith. We all know that. But when you read the word-to-word transliteration, Prabhupada has translated Shraddhaya as with earnestness. That means if you didn't read the transliteration, you won't get the full flavor of the word faith. Prabhupada is saying, Shranavata, those who hear Bhagavatam, with what? With faith, Shraddhaya. But what is the component of faith? Earnestness. So then suddenly we begin to understand, if we are earnest about coming to the program, earnest about reading, then our faith is created. That's why Prabhupada used the word earnestness in transliteration, and then he puts faith in the translation. So actually studying Bhagavatam that way, writing it down, having notebooks, studying them, that can be done in a few minutes through the day. Doesn't take much. But if you put them together, you'll find you've spent quite a bit of time in the day being absorbed in studying. Of course, if you can put aside an hour, good. But sometimes if you're working, it may not always be possible. So these are some things that I've learned to adjust to so that I can just continue with Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Hare Krishna.